Today is Thursday, June 18, 2025. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network, a federal judge ruled that the EPA's decision to cut $600 million in environmental justice grants was unlawful, not a shock. Well, the absolutely unqualified Defense Secretary Peter Hegseth dodges tough questions on Capitol Hill, and he gets reamed out by Senator Tammy Duckworth, who served, and she lost limbs in the military. Oh, I cannot wait until y'all see how she tore him to shreds. You are going to absolutely enjoy. Well, the Fed chair says Donald Trump's tariffs are going to hurt the economy. And then what happens? Well, that idiot Trump, how he's outside celebrating the erection of a flagpole at the White House. He sounded like a drunk uncle with dementia when he was talking. It really was bad. Listen to him. Wait till we play from some of y'all what was said about this here. Also, why is the Country Academy, why the Grammys changing their rules? Beyonce wins Best Country Album, and now all the folk get mad, so now they got a new traditional country album? Yeah, I got a couple of things to say about that. In a Texas redistricting ballot in Galveston, it could wipe out black voting power. We'll talk with Simone Leeper with the Campaign Legal Center about that. Also, a New Hampshire lawmaker sends an openly racist email blaming black people for shootings in the country. I guess he forgot all the white folks who own guns. Plus, in Florida, their board of governors fait accompli is done. They unanimously chose Marva Johnson as the new president of Florida A&M University, and guess what? She's still grossly unqualified for the job. Plus, Tennessee State secures millions in funding. We'll tell you about that as well. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, tomorrow Texans and folks across the country will be celebrating Juneteenth. Of course, they'll be doing so in Galveston, where 160 years ago, General Granger and a number of black troops showed up there to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation. Well, what's been happening is a battle for voting rights in Texas. Republicans there have been trying to strip black Latino voters of their voting power by trying to change the constitution of the Galveston Commissioners Court. October 2023, a federal judge ruled that Galveston County's redistricting map, which would deny Galveston's black Latino voters of representation. They also comprise nearly half of the county's population. Said they did not equal opportunity to choose a candidate of their choice, saying it violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Well, for years, there's been a battle going on there over this. The Campaign Legal Center has been part of the ongoing lawsuit challenging what's been happening there. Simone Leeper is the senior legal counsel of redistricting at the Campaign Legal Center. She joins us right now. Simone, this is absolutely crazy. And what we have to understand, look, I'm born and raised in Texas, born and raised in Houston, not far from Galveston. And what this is about, Republicans systematically want to screw over black people. Right now in Tarrant County, where Fort Worth is, doing the exact same thing. They want to get rid of one of the black districts and go from 3-2 Republican control to 4-1. That's the same thing happening in Galveston County, correct?
That's right. It's going from having one seat in which the Black and Latino community had the opportunity for 30 years now to elect their candidate of choice and have their seat at the table in the county commissioner's court. And now they stripped that away by cracking those voters across the various districts.
Now stop right there. For people who don't understand that phrase, explain to them what cracking is.
Absolutely. Basically, it's when you have a large number of voters, in this case, Black and Latino voters, who could make up the majority in a district. And in this case, have for over 3 decades made up the majority of a district where they had the opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. And what they've done is divide up those voters in the new lines that they've drawn and split them up so that they no longer make up a majority in any of the seats for the county commissioner's court. And so now they don't have that seat at the table, which has been so important to that community for so long.
Now, when you say that seat, what's the present representation? How many commissioners are there in Galveston County? How many are Republican? How many are Democrat?
When we look at this, we don't necessarily look at it just in terms of Republican and
Right,
Democrat.
understand.
What we're really looking at is the candidates of choice, right? And at this point, we went from having 1 seat of the 4 in the commissioner's court, and then there's also the county judge. There was 1 seat in which the Black and Latino community for 30 years have been able to elect their candidate of choice. And now they have no seats.
No. Obviously, the reason I'm saying that, because the reality is it does count to, so right now, of the 5 members of the commissioner's court, 4 elected, you got the county judge. How many of them right now, how many of them are Republican? How many are Democrat?
Right now, on the ideological lean, 4 or all 5, including the county judge, would be Republican, and then none would be Democrat, or in the way that we look at it, none are allowing that minority community to elect their candidate of choice.
Now, previously, this is the current map. So previously, what was the makeup? Was it 4 Republicans, 1 Democrat?
That's right. And it's one of those situations where you think, oh, well, you didn't have a majority anyways, right? What did it matter? But what we see is that in this community, this seat has been so important. I'm from Florida, so I know what kind of an impact hurricanes can have. In 2017, when Hurricane Harvey rolled through and devastated Galveston County, having that representative made all the difference in terms of communication and advocacy, and really having a seat at the table in the halls of the county government.
Right. So again, I understand from your organization's standpoint, you look at this as just what the law, you look at the racial, the whole deal, but I'm also factoring in the politics. The reason they are doing this is because they don't want there to even be 1 Democrat elected. Because based upon African Americans and Latinos and how they vote, they likely are going to vote Democrat. So by breaking this up and splintering them, you now be able to create a 5th Republican seat. And so right now it's 5-0 Republicans versus Democrats, correct?
That is correct, but I do want to be very clear that here what we're alleging, and what I think the facts make clear, is that there was not a partisan gerrymander. There was a racial.
Oh, no, I understand that.
This was done,
Yeah, I understand that, because first of all, that was the case in North Carolina, and the reality is the Supreme Court has already ruled that they don't have jurisdiction, which is BS with John Roberts. They don't have any jurisdiction over partisan gerrymandering. That's a state issue, but the Supreme Court still can rule on racial gerrymandering. So we saw what happened in the case in Alabama, where they created an opportunity district. We saw what happened in Louisiana, where they created an opportunity district as well. We saw how the court has actually ruled in the favor of African Americans and Latinos regarding Section 2, and so that strand is still available. The reason I'm trying to explain to the public what's going on here, what they are doing is what you're alleging. They are doing racial gerrymandering, and the goal of the Republicans in Galveston County is they want total control, and by cracking this district, they are saying we're going to splinter Blacks and Latinos, so essentially you're not going to be able to elect the person of your choice, and more than likely, the person of your choice is going to be a Democrat. In Tarrant County, the same thing. There are 2 Black members of the Tarrant County court. They want to eliminate one of those to go from a 3-2 Republican to 2 Democrats, and 3 white members and 2 Black to go 4 Republicans and 1 Black. So that's really what their strategy is, and it really comes down to racial gerrymandering, and that's what it boils down to. Regarding this here, has the Supreme Court ruled on the maps in Galveston County?
The Supreme Court hasn't ruled specifically on the maps in Galveston County. The Supreme Court was involved in that the district court had said you can't proceed in the 2024 elections based on these discriminatory maps. And that was appealed up to the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court allowed the election to move forward under maps that were identified by the district court as mean-spirited and egregious.
And is that because the Supreme Court sort of has this ridiculous ridiculous damn rule that, oh, it's too close to the elections for us to be able to consider this. So therefore, even though the district court has ruled that it's illegal, leave it in place, and then we'll decide after the election, for a future election, whether it's illegal or illegal.
Yeah, that could certainly be a factor. And when we have these sorts of things, we don't want to read too much into the tea leaves on, what the court considers about what we call the merits of the case, the actual facts, right? If they're not issuing a written opinion, giving their justification. But that is something that has been a huge problem in terms of saying, oh, it's too close to the election, even when in actuality, it's not. Yeah,
because same thing has happened in other jurisdictions where they were frankly electing people under the illegal maps, but the Supreme Court allowed them to continue. All right, so from a court standpoint, where do you stand with this here? Like, is it in the appellate? Is it going back to Supreme Court? Because you're in limbo right now. When are the elections in Galveston County? Are they in an off year like this year, or are they next year in 2026?
So it was in 2024 that the election went place underneath the discriminatory map.
2 years or 4 year terms?
That is going to be 2 year terms.
Got it. So that was in 2024.
Correct.
The next election.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm blanking on it right now, and I don't want to give it wrong information. I apologize.
No, don't worry about it. I can easily find it. So we're talking about, if you're talking about, where does the court case stand?
So right now, the court case is back down at the district court level. So the district court judge ruled under a set part of our claims that we made, right? So there's the parts of the claims that are moving forward right now are about intent. It's about the discriminatory intent and the racial gerrymandering. Previously, the judge had ruled on what's called vote dilution, which is basically the effect of the maps. The fact that the maps actually, in effect, took away the opportunity for Black and Latino voters to elect their candidate of choice. And the district court ruled in favor of the Black and Latino voters, and that was up to the appellate court at the Fifth Circuit. And they did something which was truly horrible, which is they went against their own precedent, their own cases that they had previously decided, and held that there's a single race limitation on the protections of the Voting Rights Act as it relates to those effects claims.
I'm sorry, a single race limitation? What the hell is that?
Yes. So, a great question, right? And so basically you have in this case, the Black and Latino community together. They have a common community. They have common candidates of interest. They have shared concerns. And together, they're able to come together to elect a candidate of their choice. The Fifth Circuit has said that you can't bring claims on behalf of more than one racial group. So
okay, hold on, wait. I'm sorry, wait a minute. Y'all are suing on the basis of racial gerrymandering. Mm-hmm. They're trying to say, hey, if you're going to sue, you got to sue only for Black people and only for Latino people. You can't sue for Black and Latino people together?
So they haven't said that yet, and hopefully they will not, about racial gerrymandering or racial intent in the maps. What they did say is that if you're talking about the effect of the maps, the fact that it takes away voting power for these combined racial groups, they said in that case, you could only sue on behalf of Black or Latino voters. And we understand that it imposes a racial purity test on the protections of the Voting Rights Act. It makes no sense, and the vast majority of courts have not made that decision. And indeed, the Fifth Circuit previously had said that that made no sense. Unfortunately, that's the ruling that they've made. And so now we've taken this case back down to the district court level, the original court. And now we're moving forward and asking the court to rule on our claims of racial gerrymandering and discriminatory intent in redistricting.
Okay, so for folks who are watching and listening, I need y'all to understand something here. You can't do this. So guys, do me a favor, get me out of the 2 box, put me in the 1 box. So let me explain this here. Because see, I don't want her getting in trouble because she has to go before the courts. So I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna go back to our guest. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is one of the most conservative appeals courts in America. Okay? Hard right wingers. if y'all study, we covered this, what happened in Louisiana. They kept going back and forth, essentially trying to help the people in Louisiana as having an out to create the Opportunity District. And basically, the Supreme Court was like, no, this has been decided. And they kept trying and trying again. So for the people who are listening and watching, understand, that's what the Fifth Circuit is. There are more Republican-appointed judges in the Fifth Circuit than anyone else. Very few folks appointed by Democrats. And so you have to understand the radical ideological bent of the Fifth Circuit. So that's why they're doing the actions that our guest just described. Now I'll go back to Simone. So I don't need them trying to say, oh my God, you were doing this show, you were calling us out, but I can call them out because that's exactly who they are. So the thing that the benefit, and hopefully, and again, we've seen this in other cases, and where this Supreme Court shockingly has consistently, even though we saw the attack of Section 4 with Shelby B versus Holder, this Supreme Court, and it's hanging by a thread, still is going, hey, guess what? Section 2 still stands. They've actually ruled in several other cases against racial gerrymandering under the guise of Section 2. That gives you, I hope, some hope that if it goes all the way up, they will rule in your favor before the next election.
I mean, I hate to read tea leaves, but what I can tell you is that this has been described as a textbook case of racial gerrymandering by experts at court. And so it's very clear. The evidence is out there. The district court judge has made the findings that would demonstrate that this is racially discriminatory. This is racial gerrymandering. And I do want to clarify, it is 4-year terms for the county commission.
Yeah, I was just checking.
I apologize.
I've already checked. The election was in 2024, so the next election is in 2028. But if they do rule, I mean, and if they do rule that these maps are illegal, can they order a special election, or will Black and Latino voters there, frankly, have to wait until 2028?
They could order a special election, absolutely. There's also staggered terms, right? So based on the numbering of the district, that affects the year in which the election is. Right. And so, that's another option. There's no reason that this community should have to wait any longer and go any longer without that representation that is so pivotal. Absolutely. Simone Leeper, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you very much for having me. Folks, want to bring in my panel right now, talk about this here. Joining me right now, Robert Patillo. He is a civil rights attorney, also a congressional staffer. Joining us from Atlanta, Rebecca Carruthers, Executive Vice President, Fair Election Center out of D.C., Eugene Craig, CEO, X Factor Media out of Baltimore, Maryland. Rebecca, I want to start with you. I mean, again, you see what's happening in Galveston County. We've been covering what's happening in Tarrant County. What was so shameful in Tarrant County is that that Tarrant County, the government, hires this conservative firm out of, I think it was Virginia, to redraw their maps. And we played the video how the county judge would not let them testify. And Commissioner Lisa Simmons like, well, hold up, we paying for this. The taxpayers are paying for this. So how y'all gonna not let them testify in public to answer these questions? And she was like, where are they? Oh, they're in a room somewhere else. And the county judge, and so it was like, wait a minute, it's up to them whether they testify or not. This is what Republicans are doing. They hold a 3-2 majority right now in the Tarrant County Court. They want to redistrict the seats right now. We're not even in this is the middle of a census year, because the judge and the county judge makes it perfectly clear. I want another Republican on this court. This is the stuff that they are doing. They are brazen about it, and it is specifically to take out a Black county commissioner.
So, Roland, just to remind your audience, we're under a very extremely fractured Voting Rights Act, which means that functionally we kind of have a piece of Section 2 left. Section 3 has fallen. Section 5 has fallen. So what does that mean? As an example, with Campaign Legal Center, Fair Election Center, we do joint litigation with them. We just did litigation with them in the state of Alabama, which we were successful, where the state of Alabama decided they were going to remove tens of thousands of people off of the rolls. It was largely largely minority voters in Alabama going into the 2024 elections. It was a violation of HAVA, Help America Vote Act, which says you cannot make certain changes within 90 days of an election. So what we're seeing when there is no Voting Rights Act that's valid in this country, we're seeing especially in what has been previously suspect areas. So a lot of it is across the South, not just the Confederate South, but the Jim Crow South. We also see in different places in the quote unquote North where there has been local jurisdictions that have racially have made decisions based upon race in a negative way to make sure that voters aren't able to elect the candidates of their choice. What we're seeing in Texas is especially egregious because they're saying forget the 10-year cycle of where we have the census, that next year we do redistricting, we set the districts, and then for the next decade, that is indeed how people vote based upon those districts. Instead, we're seeing a constant and ever-present redistricting fight, and we are hearing very partisan things. We're hearing even from the White House, from the Congress, even telling Texas on the congressional level, hey, you need to do redistricting because we need you to send more Republicans to Washington, D.C. That's not the way this thing should work. So right now we see the way voting, we see the apparatus to determine whether it's redistricting, determining political districts, or even the apparatus of who gets to vote, we see it extremely heavily politically charged. That is not the way it's supposed to be. Voters decide who represent them. Politicians aren't supposed to decide who their voters are. But what we're seeing is a very blatant and naked attempt on keeping power, because if all things were equal, if we were making sure those who are eligible are able to vote, if we were making sure that we had fair maps in how people are able to vote, Congress will look different. And that's what certain people in this country do not want.
Eugene, look, this is all about a naked power grab. And again, that decision by the Supreme Court that was led by Chief Justice John Roberts that, we don't have any say-so in partisan gerrymandering, that's left up to the states. And so the authority there is the state Supreme Courts. That's what opened the door for the Republicans to say, in places where we run the state Supreme Court, we're just going to change the maps. The problem is the Supreme Court, federal government, still has control when it comes to racial. That's why when they had a previous court case in North Carolina, and they lost one of these, Reverend Bishop Barber kept telling the white folks in North Carolina, do not sue on the basis of partisan gerrymandering. He said you have to sue on the basis of racial gerrymandering. They ain't listened. They lost that case. And so that's the only glimmer of hope that we have, because what they're doing is they're trying to play games with it, but clearly in the Galveston County case, in Tarrant County, they targeting black people and in Latinos as well. This ain't partisan, it's race.
It's 100% race, right? And look, during your opening segment to this segment, we ran down Louisiana, Alabama, North Carolina. You're seeing the same gerrymander in Georgia. I mean, even see it in New York to a degree, right? The fact that Congressman Lawless, but it does come down to race. And what they've also understood is that, because of the race that black people vote for Democrats and the race that Hispanic people vote for Democrats, if we're able to fracture that vote up, you're able to make sure that Democrats aren't able to get elected, or just common sense public figures aren't able to get elected. And that's what the fight is going into the 26th election and the 28th election, and then lead into the 2030 census.
Robert, I made it all plain right here. This is about power. And their whole deal is, if we can sit here and roll back, take this seat, this seat, this seat, again, shove all these black folks in one district, that's what they're doing. Same thing happened. This was the South Carolina case where they said how they were removing black people out of Nancy Mace's district, pushing more of them into Congressman Clyburn's district to make that seat more black. And for years, I remember Cornell Belcher came on my Washington Watch show on TV One, and he made this point, and a lot of black people got upset. He said, black people, we have got to stop. He said, we got to be smart about our politics. He said, we've got to understand the power of black voters. He said that we're so fixated on black representation as opposed to Democratic representation. He said, then we're going to lose. And people are like, man, what are you talking about? We want more black people. He's like, no. He said, your black people can have more power if all of a sudden 25% of this district is black versus 65% of this district being black. Let's just take 65% here. He's saying, yo, if 15 or 20 go over here, this is still a majority black district. And a lot of people were really upset with that. And we saw that play out in Texas when the Republicans in Texas targeted the white Democrats. And so what they did was, and this is when the Democrats actually fled the state to try to stop this thing from being passed, and it didn't work. This was the first time, not the second time. And I remember, you had a black state representative, Ron Wilson, who went along with their particular plan because he thought he was going to win the congressional seat that was created in Houston that's now occupied by Congressman Al Green. Well, guess what? He got his ass whooped. Then he got his ass whooped and lost his state seat and later had a stroke, so he out of politics. And so black people said, no, we saw what you were doing, Ron. You were full of shit by aligning with Republicans. But what happened? They took out all white Democrats. And so the Texas congressional delegation expanded to be more Republicans by taking out the white Democrats because they were packing the black people in the black districts. And so that's what people are saying you have to be paying attention to, the game that they're playing. Oh, no, no, no. We're going to put more black people in your black district, so you're good. What that's doing is preventing black people from deciding that second district.
You're absolutely correct. And I want people to remember that your first day of political science class in college, they tell you that politics answers the question, who gets what when? It's about the public distributing the public goods. And they base that upon who has the most people behind them. And so when we're talking about voter suppression writ large as a big subject matter, folks have to understand that there's two ways you can do it. What you were just describing is packing. You put all the black folks into one district to have super majority black districts. Therefore, with the exact same population, let's say there's 10 congressional seats up for grabs, you're going to have one super majority black district and then 9 lily white districts with that same population. Then there's dilution. If you take that same majority black district and cut it up 10 different ways, where now each district only has about a 10% black population, well, now you've also diluted that vote because now you don't have the power to actually elect people within those districts. That's the second way you can do voter suppression. So this is why it's so crucial that we pay attention, not just on the federal level. Black folks will turn out for a presidential election. We will turn out for a gubernatorial, a Senate election, those sorts of things. But these state elections going into the second half of this decade, because when we go into redistricting in 2030, we will not have the protections of any version of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There will be absolutely no remnant of it on the books. The Supreme Court, as it exists right now, is only waiting. They're chomping at the bit for a case to bubble up to them so they can get rid of the last remnants and kill the Voting Rights Act dead, and the Civil Rights Act won't be long after that. So when we're going into this 2026 midterm to the 2028 election, we as a community have to make it a bedrock principle that anybody who strolls into our neighborhoods and says they want our votes has at the front of that list, not just renewing and supporting the Voting Rights Act of 1965, passing a new version for 2025. Passing a new Voting Rights Act, not just the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We have to take it to an entirely different level because the fight is completely different. You've been saying, and I've been saying for 2-3 years now, read Project 2025. Page 555 of Project 2025 talks about using the military to go into cities to put down mass demonstrations and limit free speech. And we just saw them do it last week in Los Angeles. They are telling you and choreographing that they are doing every single thing in Project 2025, and they're doing it quick, fast, and in a hurry. And one of the things in there is getting rid of every federal protection around voting, allowing these local jurisdictions to pack and to dilute the black vote. And we will see the U.S. Congress and every House of Representatives around the country looking a lot closer to 1865 than 1965, and we don't make that our priority going into the next election.
The thing for me, Rebecca, And again, and I guarantee there's somebody who's watching this sitting and going, see, there you go. You talking about support them Democrats. There are two parties in this country. There are Republicans and there are Democrats. And the reality is most black people vote Democrat. So when you're talking about voting power, you're talking about who are you likely going to elect? Who has control of purse strings? In Texas, when the hurricane hit, the last hurricane, Governor Greg Abbott said, I don't give a shit about then Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. I don't give a damn about county judge. I don't give about the county judge. Her name is Hidalgo. I don't care about her. He withheld $1 billion in federal money from Harris County because Harris County is a Democratic county. He penalized them because they were blue. And guess what Harris County has? A lot of black and Hispanic people. So I'm going to need people to stop, black people, stop being stupid, simple Simons, and who then go, hey, there you go, trying to be a shield, to understand that when Texas, when the census happened, the population in Texas expanded because of black and Hispanic people. And what do Republicans do? They added mostly Republican congressional seats. Knowing full well they ain't voting for those two. They know that. So I'm gonna need black people to understand that their whole deal is you get caught up in the D versus the R, the donkey versus the elephant, the blue versus the red, but the Republican strategy is to freeze black people out of political power, which now means you can't control budgets, you can't control dollars, and that's what politics boils down to. It boils down to the delivery of resources on the city, school board, county, state, federal level.
You know, another way to frame this isn't black people voting Democratic or black people not voting Republican, but understanding the power and the process and the history of black political power and why black people vote the way in which they vote. When we look at when blacks black men specifically got the right to vote post-slavery, largely black folks then register as Republicans, the party of Lincoln. But there was also a radical republicanism agenda that was going through the Congress at the time. We saw at that point that Democrats were largely the segregationists. They were the party of Jim Crow. But then we started to see a switch. We started to see that the Democratic Party decided, hey, we're going to be the ones to pass. They said they were going to be the ones to pass civil rights. They were going to be the ones to pass voting rights. So at that point, especially with the northern migration patterns, we started to see that black folks largely started to vote Democratic. To be clear, black people do not vote for Democrats because they love the Democratic Party. Black people are extremely pragmatic, extremely rational. So to all the people who say that black people are on the plantation or that they are sheep, you have to understand the pragmatism. Black people have in the last about 55 years have voted overwhelmingly Democratic. It's because they believe the Democratic Party has delivered things that the Republican Party hasn't enunciated or indicated that it will be willing to deliver for black people. So one thing that I would say about black voters, highly sophisticated. They are voting based upon their interests. In fact, they are the only and most consistent voting bloc in this country that is willing to vote based upon their interests. And what just so happens is that the way black people vote tend to be in the best interest for their entire country. And so we got to frame it out. It's not just a partisan lens, but it's a rational choice lens in which how black people decide to vote. And what we're seeing in this country right now is that there are people in this country who do not want black people to have political power. Period. If black people were largely Republican, there would be people in this country who would not want black people to have political power. Because if black people were largely Republican in this country, we would see that Project 2025 will probably be the opposition party to all of those mass black Republicans. Just so people understand how this thing has happened, how this thing has worked the last 200 years in this country. It's about a dilution. It's about an elimination of black political power.
All right, then. Got to go to a break. We come back, folks. We got lots to talk about right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. A very different take on Juneteenth with the one and only Dr. Sunyata Ahmed. We'll explore the amazing foods, remedies, and rituals that are a part of our history and the Juneteenth holiday.
So it's our responsibility to return the healthier version to our folks instead of just the red liqueurs marketed to us, the red sodas and the other things. I mean, why does the Kool-Aid man have to sound like Louis Armstrong? He's like, oh yeah!
Yeah, right. An enlightening and tasty hour of the Black Table, only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up? Geek Tony in the place to be. Got Cake Touch your Mama's University, creator and executive producer of Fat Tuesdays, an air hip hop comedy. But right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
Well, on Monday, it was the National Institutes of Health grants. Now it's the Environmental Protection Agency. A federal judge has ruled that Donald Trump administration acted unlawfully when it withdrew $600 million in environmental justice grants intended for low-income and minority neighborhoods. Judge Adam Abelson of the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland ruled that the EPA's termination of these grants violated the Administrative Procedure Act. These grants were part of the Thriving Communities program, which aimed to address pollution in areas that are disproportionately affected, such as Black and rural communities. The EPA had tried to discontinue the program, citing a policy shift under Donald Trump. However, the judge determined that this action was illegal and contrary to the intent of Congress. This right here, Eugene, is another example of how unlawful this administration is. And again, we're going to keep saying this. This is why federal judges matter. And this is also a direct attack on Black people. The federal judge in Massachusetts on Monday said the same thing. He had never seen this level of racial discrimination coming from the federal government in 40 years that he's been on the bench. And I'm going to keep saying this until people wake the hell up. Donald Trump and MAGA and Republican parties, they want to defund Black America. They want to destroy the civil rights and the economic rights infrastructure of Black America. They want to destroy these grants when it comes to Black health. They want to destroy these grants when it comes to the environment. So they don't give a damn about the drinking water or the air quality where Black people are. Donald Trump pulled out of that lawsuit, canceled the lawsuit in Louisiana against those petrochemical companies in Cancer Alley where Black people are dying. They called an illegal DEI settlement in Lowndes County where Black people had sewage backing up into their lawns. And you know who ain't saying shit? It's Black Republicans in Congress. And all of these skinning and grinning Negroes who I call the help, who went to the Black History Month reception at the White House. They ain't saying a damn thing. You don't hear Michaela Montgomery, Joseph Pinion, King Randall. You don't hear Terrence Williams. You don't hear any of these folks, Sharice Lane. You don't hear none of these people speaking up for Black people. Darrell Scott ain't saying nothing for Black people. I can go Byron Donalds, Tim Scott, Burgess Owens, Wesley Hunt. They don't give a damn about Black people. They are simply Black folks with Black face, and they are operating doing the bidding of white conservative Republicans.
I mean, listen, it's literally just me, Sophia Nelson, and Michael Steele. But the thing is this, right? I want to go back to that judge's point. At the end of the Biden first term or last term, at the end, that last quarter, right? People, oh my gosh, what is Sleepy Joe doing? You know, what is Biden doing? You know, X, Y, and Z. That last 3 to 6 months, he was fighting to confirm judges. Why? Because hey, as the last safeguard, as the last safety net to a Trump administration, you have the courts that they're still hanging on by a thread because the Trump administration is actively ignoring orders coming out of federal courts at this point. But as a last safety net, as a last fail-safe, they confirmed as many judges as possible and still wanted to confirm more. And the thing is this, it's Team Trump's agenda to defund Black America, to do much harm as possible to Black America, and then turn around and say, oh, the Democrats are the reason why things are messed up. Well, no, that's not true. It's literally just not true. But it's important for people like me and you, particularly definitely people like me, that are Black Republicans, to speak up, speak out, and be loud about fighting for things that affect Black people directly, whether it comes to education, whether it comes to the environment, whether it comes to economic opportunity. And look, I always say it, a lot of these new age Black Republicans, they aren't Republican, they aren't conservative, they are MAGA folk. There are people that came up through the age of Donald Trump. You have some folk that existed before Donald Trump, but then capitulated to Donald Trump and MAGA. And I say, look, it's literally just me at this point, me, Sophia Nelson, and Michael Steele. But, we're going to keep fighting for Black folk and the interests of Black people.
I'm just not going to sit silently by, Robert, and allow these people to front and play games with us. Who's your guy in Atlanta? The radio guy. Where his ass at? What's his name? Shelly? What's his name?
Yeah, you're right.
No. What's his name?
You're right. It's Shelley Winter. And
no. Here's my whole question. Here's my whole question. Shelley Winter. Do you see Shelley Winter calling them out on this anti-Black agenda? Is he saying anything?
You see, I don't know. What I was saying was me and Shelley had to stop talking because I'm Haitian, and he repeated the whole Trump, Haitians eat cats and dogs. So I cut everyone out of my life. I don't care if I've known you 20 years. If you say the Haitians eat cats and dogs, and I got to go look my Haitian mama and look at the picture of my dead Haitian grandmama in the face, I have to make a moral decision as to whether or not I can associate with individuals of that nature.
What does he go by? Does he go by WINTER or WYN?
This is weird, Roland, but
that shit ain't weird. I'm asking you a question.
It's a strange thing we're doing, girl.
You know how to spell his damn name. How to spell his name?
It's WYNTER.
Good. Now keep going with your comment.
Now, Rob, we run down on people on this show.
No, hell yeah. No. I ain't. Listen. Listen. I ain't trying to sit here and play nice with these people. Because here's my whole deal. I know Black Republicans. Okay, Eugene's a Black Republican. Michael Steele's a Black Republican. Our dear friend Chris Metzler, who passed away, was a really good brother. I've known Black Republicans my entire life, and those are Edward Brooke Black Republicans. These are people who are conservative, but they actually love Black people. When I talk to Elroy Saylor, they love Black people. But these Negroes, they love trying to talk about how y'all on the plantation. Dems ain't doing nothing for y'all. And when these white MAGA folk target Black people with anti-Black agenda, all them Negroes quiet. Now, if you want credibility with me, call them out when they do something wrong. And so that's why I asked for his name, because I'm going to look for his damn social media, and I'm going to see what his ass got to say. Go on right ahead.
The point I wanted to turn back to is a point about environmental racism and why this EPA decision is so important. And when progressives, when liberals use terms like environmental racism, it loses a lot of people. If you grew up in a neighborhood where there were some big-ass power lines, some high-voltage poles that went over your house, and now all the kids don't act right, that's environmental racism. If you grew up in a housing project like I did, you looked out the back window, and there was a big-ass landfill right there full of who knows what kind of chemicals and stuff that we were breathing in that went into the water supply, and that's where all the Black neighborhoods were. Environmental racism. If you were in a community where there was a giant, let's say you're in Philly, and there's a factory with an eternal flame burning methane when you go by on the highway, and that smoke comes down onto a neighborhood inhabited mostly by Black and brown people, and now the test scores are lower there than they are on the other side of town, that's environmental racism. So I want folks to understand that when we talk about some of these terms, it sounds like they don't have anything to do with you. Or when Donald Trump and the conservatives talk about deregulation of business. Yes, it sounds great to have deregulation. Deregulation also means they can put lead back in the paint. Deregulation means they can put asbestos back in your attic. Deregulation means they can dump those chemicals directly into stream that's upstream from your water supply, and that doesn't impact them. So we have to be educating these conversations, ensuring that we are fighting these fights and operating in a manner that we're not just simply saying, well, does it directly impact Black folks? We have to ask the question, how will it impact our communities and our country writ large?
See, I'm sitting here looking, your boy, Carol, go ahead. Carol, book Shelly ass on the show. Because I want to ask him directly these questions. Because under his Twitter bio it says, never scared, Black, and conservative. Well, I want to know if he's saying anything against these policies. Because, Rebecca, they're absolutely, positively anti-Black.
Look, there's a lot of quiet people. I mean, you could add on Angela Stanton and other people, but also we have to call out some of the Democrats who have 2028 aspirations as well. You know, if indeed Black people are the most consistent and largest voting bloc or the base of the Democratic Party, then where are the 2028 Democrats as well in talking about the anti-Blackness that's coming out this administration?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't give a damn about any 2028 Democrats, because hell, we ain't even got the 2026 yet. You can't focus. My whole deal is, I think that's part of the problem. Folks spending too much time on 28, they ain't paying no attention to 2025.
But that's the point. The very people who are now going on social media saying, where is Barack Obama? Why isn't he standing up and talking about this moment? Well, guess what? Barack Obama is not the leader of the Democratic Party. So for those who are trying to be the leader of the Democratic Party, then they also have to understand that there's a call to action for them to use their voice in this moment. Don't wait until 2026 or 2027, and then all of a sudden you want to be the champion and tell Black folks, hey, you need to show up and vote for the Democratic Party. My point is, these people who are trying to line up and figure out and machinate with how they're going to, what position and do their positioning for 2028, that leadership needs to appear now. Because if it appears now, it's actually authentic leadership. So one thing that I would say to Black voters, stop, look, and listen and see who is actually championing your issues right now. Stop, look, and listen and see who is willing to call out the anti-Blackness, anti-Black policies that we're clearly seeing from this administration. This isn't well, maybe they don't mean it. No, like we've talked about since last year, this is Project 2025. One thing that I want to note, when I was going into the elections last year, I was in Alabama at an event. I was talking to a voter about Project 2025. And one of the things they said back to me is, this is Alabama. We've been living in Project 2025. I don't think the rest of the country is ready for what is getting ready to happen to the entire country. So I do want to acknowledge that there are people, there are Black folks living in states where they've been under this type of framework. They've been under this type of government, but now we're seeing it nationally.
See, the reason, y'all, I'm a little froggy about this here is because I'm just not interested in these lame-ass people getting away with their BS. I mean, I'm when I say I'm sick and tired, and I'm being sick and tired, I am. I had a conversation earlier today with somebody, and we were talking about issues of faith in the poor. And I literally said, I said, you know what? It's time some folk just roll up on Ralph Reed's Faith and Freedom Conference. Because, you know, they had it every single year, and it's amazing. They have it every single year, and ain't never conversations about faith and freedom. Like, it ain't never conversations about faith. And I look at the agenda, and I'm like, yo, where the faith stuff at? Where the faith stuff? And in fact, I'm trying to sit here, and I'm going to have to reset. Give me a second. I'm going to have to reset my Roku here. So control room, I'm about to send this to y'all. I need y'all to pull this up. Ben Shapiro, punk ass. You know, I can't stand lame people, and Ben Shapiro is one of them. He posted this tweet, y'all, that got my attention. And see, this is why I'm doing roll call of names. Because see, I don't want to use words like they. I don't want to say them. I want to put a name on it. And I want to challenge them to see if they have the guts to actually say or do something. And because they always running their mouths about stuff. And so let me know when y'all have it. So Ben Shapiro, he posted this tweet. y'all, and he said, it was, we're going to show it in a second, it was an honor to meet His Holiness, the Pope, in Vatican City today, and to thank him for standing up for biblical values in a chaotic world, and to present him with a signed 2005 White Sox World Series baseball I had in my collection. We're both fans. Let me explain to y'all why Ben Shapiro is a punk ass, okay? And so I'm about to explain to y'all why Ben Shapiro is a punk ass for this lame ass tweet. Because Ben Shapiro, you thanking the Pope for standing up for, quote, biblical values in a chaotic world. Does that include Gaza? Does that include the poor? Does that include the Catholic Church being against the death penalty? See, exactly which biblical values are you thanking the Pope for? See, right now, with this big, beautiful bill, that bill is a shameless, despicable attack on poor people and the working class. Ben Shapiro, were you thinking the Pope talking about them? See, I'm tired of these performative so-called evangelicals, Christians, folk who claim to be people of faith, whether they Jews, whether they are Buddhist or Hindu or Christian or Muslim, whatever you want to call it. All I want to know is, which Bible are you talking about? Are we talking about all 66 books, or are we talking about just the 4 Gospels? Which one? We talking about New Testament or Old Testament? We're talking about both. See, that's my problem with these people. And see, I think part of the problem is that people of consciousness are unwilling to name them. No, I'm talking about you got to name them. You got to call them out by name. You got to look them in the eye and say, you are a trifling ass so-called Christian. Because see, Ben Shapiro, if you gonna thank the Pope for, quote, standing up for biblical values in a chaotic world, I'm gonna need you to specify specifically what biblical value. Because see, here's the problem with folk like Ben Shapiro. And this is the problem with MAGA. And this is the problem with the Republican Party. This is the problem with Paula White. This is the problem with punk-ass Dr. Phil. This is the problem with punk-ass Drew Pinsky. This is the problem with punk-ass Dr. Oz. This is the problem with sorry-ass Ted Cruz. This is the problem with all of these so-called Christians. Y'all think this is Golden Corral. It's a buffet. I'm going to pick a little bit of this, I'm going to pick a little bit of that, and I'm going to skip some of this. But y'all don't want to deal with it. Jesus did not talk about anything at a greater rate than the poor. So which party that claims to love Jesus, they got some of the biggest crosses? Which party is fighting on behalf of rich folk in the country? When you support, Robert made the point earlier, when you support cuts to the EPA because you don't give a damn about water quality, you don't give a damn about any of that, please, by all means, tell me who exactly are you supporting? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought y'all were some Jesus-loving people. Don't y'all run around quoting Genesis and on the first day, the Lord? Don't y'all love talking about how God made this, God made the earth, everything comes from God? So if everything comes from God, then why are y'all abusing the very thing that God created? Why do y'all say that environmental racism doesn't exist? Why do y'all say that climate change is not real? Why do y'all's response to anything about climate or the environment is that's going to cost too much? but y'all say y'all love Jesus. I'm really confused. I remember the white pastor. We played the video. Let me know if y'all can try to chase that down. The white pastor, I think it was in North Carolina, who called out all of these right-wing white conservatives for buying that punk, that sorry, trifling trash Trump Bible he did with Lee Greenwood that combined the Bible and the Constitution. That white pastor had the audacity and the unmitigated gall, and he was right, to call them out by saying, you don't sit here and wave your Bible as a Constitution in it. He said, you are sworn as a Christian, as a believer on the Bible and not that document. But that ain't what we're dealing with. We're dealing with some fake people of faith. We are dealing with some folk who worship a deity who is a devil in Donald Trump. You got Franklin Graham, fake Christian, not even a real pastor, because the real person of faith in the family ain't him, it's Ann Lutz. And if Ann Lutz had other body parts, then she would have taken over her daddy's religious empire. But because Billy Graham believed in giving it to the son and not the daughter, he gave it to Franklin when the real person who should have had it was Ann Lutz. But I'm just going to leave that alone. Franklin Graham questioned Barack Obama's faith, but he praises this multi-married, cheating on every wife, got 3, 4, 5 baby mamas, no integrity, no credibility, is a massive liar, but Franklin Graham holds him up as the epitome of, we need to pray. We need to pray for Donald Trump. Yeah, we need to pray that Jesus hit him in the head. We need to pray that somehow he gets hit with a lightning bolt and somehow Jesus is infused in his body, because we know you ain't worth nothing if you can't even hold the Bible right. These people that support Donald Trump, who call themselves people of faith, they are demonic. They are imps for the devil. And I'm going to call it like it is. They ain't people of faith. They don't believe in the word. And so please, Ben Shapiro, don't give me this crap thank you to the Pope for standing up for biblical values in this chaotic world. Name them. See, we need more white pastors like this one right here. Come on, y'all. Thank you. Let's go play it.
People that don't read and pray will get politics mixed up with church. They start mixing and meshing together. That's why some of you bring politics into the church. You think that politics is spiritual stuff. Politics is of this world. You think it's your duty to be political about this, that, and the other. No, your duty is to serve the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, body, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Don't be talking to me about my spiritual responsibility to vote. I don't have a spiritual responsibility to vote. I have a civic privilege. Don't be telling me that voting is spiritual. See, that's what happens when you don't read and pray. When you don't read and pray, you say, wow, there's a Bible out now that includes the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Isn't that wonderful? No. No, it's disgusting. It's blasphemous. It's a ploy. Are you kidding me? Some of you are so encouraged by that. Let me tell you something. The gospel is not an American gospel. It is the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. Pastor, I bought the Bible. Really? You're telling me that you're encouraged because someone took a government, U.S. Constitution, a document that says we are of the people, by the people, and for the people, the people, the people, the people. And you have put it right beside the Word of God, which is eternal, unchanging, which says, of him, by him, through him, to him, from him are all things. And you're going to put those together and be happy about it? God forbid. Now, you can get mad if you want to, but I'm going to tell you something. If you glory in that kind of thing, you don't have a prayer life. If you glory in that kind of mess, political mess, you do not know what the Word of God says. I'm going to rear back and tell you something. This is not my home. This world is not my home. I've been sent out just like the 70 were sent out. You've been put here and sent out just like the 70 were sent out. We've been put here as strangers and pilgrims, and we are passing through. I am just walking through. I'm just renting an apartment for a little while in this strange and foreign land. No, sir, my real citizenship is in heaven, from which we look for the Lord Jesus Christ, who's going to change our vile body, that it may be made like unto his glorious body.
Eugene, real simple. There are few white pastors with the guts to say that.
Listen, across this country, you have the evangelical church at this point that has decided to hit the Republican Party. That's the reason why Iowa kicks off the primaries and presidential cycles. You don't have too many white pastors that are walking around with that level of conviction, that level of consciousness. The issue also, he's right. These pastors aren't reading their Bibles, and they're selectively preaching from their Bibles. We have all the infamous pictures of all the mega church leaders and high name faith leaders, and faith in quotations, their hands extended out over Trump, praying for him, but they're not praying for him to do right by people that are hurting in this country and across the world. They aren't praying for him to do right and solve conflicts of people across the world in this country. And that's what it's been. You kicked off the segment with Ralph Reed's Faith and Freedom Coalition annual gathering. I wouldn't even call it that. I would call it the Indoctrination and Tyranny annual gathering, and that's what it is. You're not going to hear Ben Shapiro, who's not even a Christian, be able to define what Christian values he's hoping the Pope is standing on and getting the business clear on, because he doesn't even believe in them himself. And so, we're living in a really, really weird time that's kind of always existed, but now in our forefront for XYZ reasons. But it is reinforcing. It does feel good to see, particularly white pastors, because we have black pastors who have always spoken to the truth and conviction of the Bible, to the truth and conviction of the faith, but the freedom that the faith gives, right? Black liberation theology is a thing, and it's sad that, when Barack Obama, got elected, and during that whole cycle, that, the black faith got dragged through the white media. But, it is, well heartening to see a white pastor standing on business when it comes to the actual faith of Christianity.
I'm just not interested for a second, Rebecca, in giving these people any space to breathe.
I was going to say, I bet you that pastor claps on the 2s and 4s and not the 1s and 3s, but who knows? Eugene kind of hit on this, like hearing faith and freedom. I would never attend something called that if you're not talking about liberation, because the Bible talks about in Christ there is.
I'm talking about, Rebecca, they ain't got nothing about faith and the poor on their agenda. Like, not a year.
Look, like I think I've shared on the show that I grew up Kojic, Church of God in Christ, so very much Pentecostal. I was fourth generation Kojic until in college I started to go to some non-denominationals. And what's interesting is that also growing up in the Midwest, I grew up around a lot of white evangelicals because Kojic to some extent is Black evangelicals, especially before the Bishop Sheard out of Detroit era of Kojic. And my dad was a minister. I remember my dad asked me, "What's your favorite passage about Jesus?" And I was like, Matthew 21. And for those of you all who aren't familiar, that's the Jesus who fussed and cussed in the temple, who went and he overturned the tables, beat people's behind, pushed them out the temple, and said that you are a bunch of corrupt grifters. Get out of my daddy's house. And so when I think in terms of the gospel, when I think in terms of freedom and liberation, it's not what Ben Shapiro and the rest of those ilk are trying to sell. In fact, my viewpoint is that they're trying to sell white supremacy in the frame of trying to use biblical, quote unquote, biblical words. And even when people say, "Oh, I believe in biblical principles," what does that actually mean? How are you living that out? Doesn't the Bible say true religion undefiled is taking care of the poor, taking care of the widows, taking care of the fatherless? Those are the tenets of what religion is supposed to be if you're actually following what the Bible actually says, which, like you said, many of these people aren't. Instead, they're subscribed to a cult that's rooted in white supremacy. Just like if I ever walk into a church and the picture of Jesus is blonde and blue-eyed, I'm leaving. That's a cult. It is white supremacy. It's not even quote unquote biblical. People got it all the way mixed up in this country, especially understand of how Black theology plays into this, especially of those who descended from slavery, who were forced to deal with spirituality in terms of a slave master's Bible, which didn't have any of the liberation text, any of the freedom, if you're going to use freedom, but I prefer using liberation. So Black people in religion, and even to Eugene's point, the way in the Barack Obama presidency, especially the first term, how the Black church was really skewered, especially around Black liberation theology. I view Black people, we're spiritual. Are we necessarily this Christianity thing that has evolved and rooted in white supremacy? No. So it doesn't even fall on us that way. Be like, we experience spirituality different, especially for those who are still connected to our ancestral home. So it's cool. I'm glad this minister called it out, but then what? We need all the Southern Baptists to call it out. We need all the Southern Baptists to stop being so segregated, stop being so anti-Black, because they're ultimately the ones who put all of this in the White House. They're the ones who put the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and the rest of those ilk who are very much anti-poor people, anti-diversity, anti-women, anti all the things and the people that Jesus hung out with in the Bible.
Well, Robert, we also need Black preachers to be a hell of a lot more proactive in confronting these folk, challenging them to their faces at their conferences, at their events, and not just in their pulpits.
You're absolutely correct. And just kind of to Rebecca's point, and for my etymology nerds, I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you. Look at the word religion itself, and that kind of Latin prefix, reg. What are some other things that have that same prefix? Regulation, regiment, regality. What do they all talk about? Control. How do you control a group? Do you control them through regulation? Do you control them through being a royal, through regality? Do you control them by putting them into a regiment where they're doing the same thing all the time? Or do you control them with religion? It all goes into the same thing, and our political leadership has known this for decades, that the easiest way to control people, to get them to vote against their enlightened self-interest, to get them to not ask any damn questions, is through religion. Bob Marley said, some people say great God will come from the sky and take away all your pain and make everybody feel high. But if you know what life is worth, you'll know it's here on earth. Because they want to control you into believing that your goal, your reward comes later, but they will enjoy the fruits of their labor now. Inside of the buildings, they'll have gold, they'll have marble, they'll have all the trappings of the world, and then tell you to go out and suffer in order to support that. It's the exact same way in politics and in religion. So when people understand that, they have to start thinking logically about what's best for themselves, as opposed to simply what either the regulatory bodies, the political bodies, or the religious bodies are telling you what's best for you while they're not doing the same thing.
Listen, I ain't letting nobody off the hook. We got to call folk out, and that's what we're going to do. They talk about name it and claim it. I'm going to name it and call it. Going to break, we come back. Y'all, I got a whole section of, I might have to bring back crazy-ass white people. Because I got 4 stories where these people truly have lost their minds. Quick break, break it down, support the show. Join our Bring the Fuck fan club. You want to give via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. You can also, of course, see a check and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Send it to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037. 0196, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
This week on the other side of change.
State of the Democratic Party.
What are the barriers preventing us from seeking true liberation and including more voices in that process?
They overlook Black organizers, young Black people, the work that we do all throughout the year. But then when the election cycle comes around, now all of a sudden they want to listen to us, listen in quotation marks. Now all of a sudden they want our labor and our contributions. And it's just like, for me, I'm at the point where it's like, no, we're not doing that.
Tune in only on the other side of change on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker. Truly proud on the Proud Family.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Proud.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder, Disney Plus. And I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
Lord, I really get some of my best laughs these days when these whiny, crying ass Trump folk who are undocumented, when they get sit back somewhere else and they voted for Trump, I don't know what to do. A South Florida woman has now joined the group. She's regretting for voting for Trump because her daddy got his ass snatched by ICE. And now, he about to get deported. Roll her crying ass.
No one deserves to go through something like this behind bars. He has lived in Florida for more than half his life and worked for the same construction job for many decades. Every day that goes without him here is a day lost forever. This is about being human, about love, connection, and presence. The one thing he needs the most is the one thing that we're being kept from giving him, which is us. I feel that it would be immoral and inhumane to let a man who is suffering, who is terminally ill, spend what little time he has left in pain and isolation. Please don't let him die in a cell. Please don't let his vital memories be of those of pain and isolation. The American flag stands for compassion, kindness, liberty, and justice for all. We're all human, and today I'm asking for one human act of compassion to please let my dad come home.
My vote, again, is to deny the request for conditional medical release.
When I voted for Trump, I supported the very system that allows this kind of cruelty to happen. I've spent the last few days reflecting, and I feel like I came through some sort of revelation. I questioned my beliefs, my choices, and my role in all of it. My vote wasn't just a mistake, it was the ultimate betrayal of the very people that I come from. I feel like living in South Florida, surrounded by Republican voices, I was brainwashed into thinking I was one of them. I fell for the propaganda, the normalization of cruelty, and I believed the lies that gave me a false sense of security and belonging. I was convinced that voting for Trump was for the economy or against crime, when in reality I was supporting a man and a movement that dehumanizes people.
He basically built his platform on targeting immigrants, spreading hate, and pushing policies that ultimately broke families apart. I regret my vote so deeply, and if I could go back and change it, I would. I'm reading, listening, learning, and unlearning everything that I thought I knew. And to anyone who is feeling the same regret as I am, I want you guys to know that there's still a way for us to move forward, but it starts with honesty first. To every single person who has been affected by the choice that I made, I am so sorry. A lot of you aren't going to forgive me, and I'm really not expecting anyone to, but I just want everyone to know that I'm going to move forward with more compassion, continue educating myself, and fight for those who can't fight for themselves.
Which one of y'all want to comment on that bullshit? Y'all go ahead. I am so tired. Oh my God. Compassion of faith and liberty and justice for all. Now I've had a revelation.
Listen, as a resident Republican in this RMU family, I'll be the one to let her know we don't give a FUCK. You decided to opt up with Donald Trump, and we're opting out of all of it. You know, we tried to tell you. We tried to tell you what's coming out of the pipeline. We tried to tell you go read Project 2025. We tried to tell you that, hey, you know, you saw the results from the first administration, so it's probably going to be worse than the second administration. We tried to tell you. We did. We did our best. And, you know, her and a lot of other, you know, Hispanic folk said, you know what, we're Viva la Trump. And now they're crying because, you know, their abuelas, their moms, their dads, their brothers, their sisters, their cousins are being snatched up by, you know, literal mass men. But at this point in time, and because it's Wednesday and their kids probably watching, we don't give a F. Maybe next time you vote right, you won't have to deal with this.
I'm just gonna go ahead and make me a protein. I'm just gonna make me a protein shake. Robert, go on ahead, cause I can't even, you know, I all that bullshit. And God, I'm surrounded by Republicans. I was brainwashed. Like your dumb ass can't read.
Look, Roland, as the resident Haitian on the show, I have Haitian family members in Florida who voted for Trump and are dealing with similar situations currently.
And what? Hold up, what the hell were they thinking when he said he sit their ass back last time? He was saying Haitians were eating cats and dogs, and they dumb asses voted for him.
You ain't got to tell me. I tried to tell them, and they ain't believe these things were taking place, and now they see. But to all those individuals out there who are hearing this and who are realizing maybe he wasn't playing, who are thinking to themselves, well, maybe wouldn't be going to war with Iran by June, and maybe wouldn't have troops in the streets of major cities by the end of May, and maybe he wouldn't crash the economy in 100 days. Maybe you thought that he was joking about that. Well, now you know and you understand. And guess what? The doors of the church are open. You are welcome back. Come back home because we need you for the midterms. We gotta stop thinking about what happened in 2024 and start thinking about 2026. And all y'all people who regret your vote, it's time to come forward, tell your story, tell your testimony, encourage more people to turn out. We have to increase those numbers. Elections are about addition, not subtraction. So we have to bring those people back in. So if you realize you made a bad decision and may have accidentally voted for Hitler in 1933, you're welcome to come back. If we still have elections in 2026, we need you.
Rebecca, I'm just gonna channel Bernie Mac. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, I'm not going to go back and forth with people who think they're Spanish instead of indigenous, you know? I mean, that's a pathology. That's a choice. I think instead of doing some of this performative stuff, some of those people should just take that to the grave. If I don't know how you voted, then you know what, child, take that to the grave. And, you know, sorry for you. I hope you and your family figure it out.
Let's go to our next story. Racist white man in Massachusetts. His ass about to go to jail because he decided to throw a rock that impacted some black folks. So what did he do? He threw some rocks at a black father and his daughter while they were fishing last month. He appeared before the judge to face the charges against him. Now, he's 67-year-old. His name is David McPartland. He's charged with assault with a dangerous weapon and an assault to intimidate in connection with the May 26 incident. Sharon Brown, his 10-year-old daughter, were fishing on a local lake when this white man, later identified as McPartland, came out of his home and told them they couldn't fish in the area. Well, that's when Brown recorded the brief interaction where McPartland called them a racial slur. Brown then called the police. According to court documents, McPartland admitted to throwing rocks and said, quote, he slipped out a word that maybe shouldn't have. The judge entered a not guilty plea on McPartland's behalf, and he was released on his own recognizance. He's scheduled to appear in court next month. Now come on. Now, Robert, I don't know what happened. Nigga just slipped out. I don't know what happened. It was the GA. I don't know what happened. It just slipped out. It just slipped out. Man, I hope they slip your ass in jail. I don't care if you walking in that cane. See, and now the daddy upset because his daughter, she no longer interested in fishing. She don't want to go near the water because of this racist white man in Massachusetts.
What I want people to remember are a couple key words and phrases. So, or encounter yourself in a situation like this. You want to call law enforcement immediately. You want to say the following words. I am under active assault. I'm asking you to step away. I'm going to have to invoke self-defense and make sure the police hear this. At that point, you can officially whoop that person's ass, actually. You're defending yourself from an individual who was assaulting you with rocks. You don't know the nature of the rocks. You don't know what their intentions are. He doesn't know what happens the minute that he decides to commit a felonious assault upon you. And for this reason, you are legally entitled to beat the brakes off their happy ass. Because if you get yourself in that situation, occasionally, you'll have to find out about consequences. And class, it's important for us to appreciate the word of the day, which is consequences.
Okay, look, I ain't no lawyer, so this is how the call should go. Hey, 911, I'm gonna need y'all to send the cops and send the ambulance because a white man that threw some rocks at me and my daughter. I'm about to whoop his ass right now for self-defense, so he gonna need an ambulance when I'm done with his punk ass. That's how my call gonna go. Okay, all right, so let me go on this one here. White woman in California loses her damn mind, calls some black movers niggas. Now she mad because they recorded a video, posted on TikTok. It's got more than 2 million views. Roll it.
House is blocked off. I can't get out. I live here. I can't get out of my fucking house. Fuck you.
Yeah, I think a simple "can you move your truck, please" would have sufficed.
You stupid nigger.
Right. Glad I recorded that.
Okay, so here's the details here. Okay, the black guys were moving. The truck was blocking the street, blocking the driveway. She comes out and says, "Acting a fool, need y'all to move." They said, "No problem, we'll move the truck." But she had to get a little extra, then calls them the N-word. Well, what then happens? They post the video on TikTok. Her ass got real famous real fast. Then her dumb ass, what has she decided to do? She decided to hit them up. Can y'all take the video down? She got rid of all of her social media as well. No, When I saw the story, Rebecca, I was like, no, I think she needs to be more famous. Roll that shit again.
House is blocked off. I can't get out. I live here. I can't get out of my fucking house. Fuck you.
Yeah, I think a simple "can you move your truck, please" would have sufficed.
You stupid nigger.
Right. Glad I recorded that.
Ain't that something? Said, you stupid nigga. That's the quote that she actually used. And so I can't, for some reason, I can't pull up my iPad today. But the white woman in the video, Rebecca, her name is Kaylee Buchanani, Buchinani. Her ass done left the state. Her ass done left the state. Y'all, she's dyed her hair purple so she can't be recognized. She's gotten rid of all of her social media. This is the quote that she said on Zoom to this K-Ron Channel 4. "I'm sorry for what I said. I'm sorry I wanted to hurt you, but it's not because I'm a horrible person. It's because I've been struggling recently." Buchanani says she's received death threats, Rebecca, and had people harass her about what she said in the video. She also said that even her parents are getting phone calls. Quote, Rebecca, "I had to change my number, turn off all social media. I had people calling me, giving me death threats, multiple people a day calling me, harassing me, telling me what a horrible person I am. My parents still get phone calls." I'm sorry, it's above me now.
I mean, I guess her parents should have raised her better. I mean, she learned that from something. I mean, yeah, she fled the state. Those boots are made for walking. And she walked up out of that state. I mean, come on. Like, don't let all this rhetoric that you're hearing on TV confuse you. Like, people aren't dealing with this. Just like last week, we talked about some of the changes in the military. Like, look, people can say what they want. They can do all this anti-DEI and say we're going to remove Medgar Evers' name and all that stuff. But the rank and file is still primarily Black folks. And some brown folks. Like, everyday, regular people aren't putting up with this. So whatever courage y'all think you're getting from the president, you don't got the president's security.
Nope.
And y'all need to just leave people alone because people are fed up. Leave us the F alone. We don't bother nobody. We don't want to bother y'all. Just leave us alone. But if you bother us, you might have to move.
Eugene, I got one more. Her ass said, you're going to love this one here. She was asked the question if the N-word is something that she says often. She says, quote, "No, I do not." Hold up, here it comes. "I grew up with a lot of Black people." And then she went, "And with the music we listen to, sure, maybe in a different form. Do I say it that way? No, I don't. It was merely just, he hurt me, I wanted to hurt him. It had nothing to do with me being a racist." Gone.
So look, right? This is what I want them brothers to do, right? I'm pretty sure you got some folk that support you. I want, when them cash apps come through, I want her to relive this forever. So when the cash apps come through, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go over to one of these little platforms, all right? I want you to take out an ad, and I want you to just run that video, that 15 seconds of her calling you an Nigger, so she can never escape it no matter where she goes. And them ass is cheap. I want you to make sure she never escapes it. Because, one more time, it just rolled right off her lips. She knew what she was doing. She knew what she wanted to say. It was her entitlement. She thought she owned the street. One more time, bro said all you had to do was ask me to move the truck. We would have moved the truck for you. But, she had to strut away thinking she was some kind of badass and call him a nigger. And what we're not going to do is make sure, think she could just, ease on out of it by, delete my social media. And then I'm going to dye my hair. Sorry, this is 2025, baby girl. They could dock Social Security and everything. I'm not advocating for it. As a victim of it, I'm not advocating for it. But listen, I just want white people to stop calling Black people niggas, so then you don't have to deal with the find out part of the fuck around.
But I love how she like, it's in our music. I can imagine. What's her little name again? I can imagine her little trifling ass. Hold on, let me go back. I can imagine Kaylee sitting here like, I ain't mean it that way. I kind of meant it. I said it, but I ain't quite said it in that form. Can you imagine Kaylee doing this here? Girl, come on. Y'all, they really getting on my damn nerves. Okay, hold up. I got to tell y'all about this one here. Hold up. We ain't done. Okay, let's see. We done with the Trump person. We done it old racist ass rock thrower. We done with racist ass Kaylee. Now let's go to this one here. New Hampshire Republican. He blames black people. We the problem for all the gun violence in America. That's right, y'all. Travis Corcoran wrote his email in response to receiving an invitation from a gun safety. Y'all, can't nobody see that. We should have blown it. Come on. Okay, come on now. Y'all should have. Come on. My Lord have mercy. Okay. He wrote an email in response to receiving an invitation from a gun safety organization to participate in National Gun Violence Awareness Day. He posted both the email from the organization and his response email on Twitter saying, quote, I get emails from gun grabbers, I respond. Check this out. He said, Rachel, thanks for writing. Some people say that I'm on the spectrum, probably, and I think that's likely correct. 3 indications of this are A, I'm averse to changes in clothing. I tend to wear black t-shirts every single day. B, I'm quite interested in data and statistics. C, I'm unconcerned about the popularity or social respectability of the conclusions that I reach and the opinions I espouse. With regards to gun violence, I've done a deep dive on the topic, and all of the data that I read indicates that violence isn't associated with the presence of guns, but with the presence of African Americans. Blacks commit violent crimes at 5 to 10 times the rate of whites. This is one reason that there's such an amazingly tight correlation between states with a majority white population and states with extraordinarily low crime rates. I agree that awareness is important. People need to understand facts. If they're going to push for the correct policies to reduce violence, you have my pledge that I will wear a black t-shirt on Friday, June 6th, to help make people aware of the fact that crime is predominantly caused by African Americans and not by guns. Have a great week. Well, I mean, I'm just curious. Now, Robert, I know your ass love guns like I drink protein shakes. But what's real interesting to me here is every time there's a mass shooting, if I had to go to a betting market, I put my money on a white man.
You know, you can take it even further, Rolly, because what happens is we're dealing with a question of definitions here, because they say gun violence, because they want to skew the statistics towards black people. Now, if you say, well, how many police officers shoot people per year, and does that count as gun violence? There's violence, there's a gun, but because they wear a uniform, that doesn't count inside of those statistics. How many people a year are killed by white militaries worldwide using guns, using bombs, using rockets, etc.? Does that count? Are we to say that because of the European world wars from 1900 to 1945, 100 million people died? Because of that, can we simply say that Europeans, by their very nature, can't handle guns and that gun violence is correlated with that? These are the sorts of ridiculous things that we end up fighting against, and that these are the arguments that we are losing when we allow these conservatives to change the American educational system. When you allow them to come in and start saying we got to get rid of CRT, we have to get rid of DEI in education, we have to make sure we're doing this patriotic American version. What they're talking about is enshrining white supremacy in the consciousness of the next generation. They fear that the next generation does not believe enough in the mythology of America and the holiness and divinity of white Americans, and that's why they are changing this from the youngest going forward and calling anything else woke. This is nothing less than a fight for the minds, bodies, and souls of the next generation. And going back to the last story, this may not be the worst time for us to return to that conversation about why exactly we have the N-word in so much of music and entertainment in America. In the 90s, we said the F-word for the gay community all the time. We ain't heard that in public in 5-10 years. We used to call women the B word in music all the time. Now, instead of doing that, we call that feminism. We would never hear them make a song saying F them other J words, talking about the Jewish community, the way they have songs saying F that other N word or any other group. So black folks saying the N-word have made white people a lot of money over the course of the last 50 years. It may be time to revisit that conversation to ask, well, why exactly is that the last taboo that's allowed to be part of popular culture? You can't say the R word anymore with regard to people with disabilities, but we allow them to still make millions and billions of dollars by us using that word.
Eugene, this white boy crazy.
Listen. I'm gonna just give him some quick advice. As a former vice chair of a Republican state party, just resign. Just resign and go off to the sunset. Because if you decide to fight this, if you decide to make it a bigger story than what it already is, it's just going to hurt you downstream. You shouldn't have said it. The statement is asinine because, hey, he said, oh, majority white. Well, guess what? There's no state in this country or territory that's majority black. There's no state that's majority black. All right. And then most importantly, we know that violent crime more times than not is an issue of proximity and poverty, the two P's. And so, I mean, on the eve of Juneteenth, I think that's a great argument for reparations and whatnot, and say, hey, if you actually want to deal with violent crime, deal with poverty, deal with proximity. But we're also going to talk about violent crime. There are more white gun crimes in America than there are black gun crimes in America. That's just a fact by virtue of population. You can talk about densities, but when it comes to actual raw numbers, the numbers are still going to be the same. So, dude needs just to resign. New Hampshire GOP, which is one of the crazy GOPs and whatnot, they need to kick him out the party and on his way out because, hey, it's things like this that are going to define you going forward.
Rebecca, go on right ahead.
Two things. If black people were really committing such horrible rampage across this country and using all these guns and doing all the violence in this country, then guess what white people would do in this country? They would make guns illegal. If that's what was happening. That is not what's happening. The second thing, if we're going to talk about New Hampshire, okay, cool. New Hampshire, I think, is less than 1% black. So please tell me why all those Native American women are disappearing and being assaulted. That ain't black people doing that. So maybe you need to focus on that particular issue in your particular state instead of speaking on behalf of people which you probably don't even know.
These folk crazy. And so we're going to call them out. It's a bunch of stuff we didn't get to, but I got to go ahead and play this here because there's nothing better to me than seeing Pete Hegseth get his ass just slapped all around. I mean, just smacked all around. Courtesy of Senator Tammy Duckworth. This is a great 5 minutes and 13 seconds. Roll that.
In response to my colleague from Oklahoma, I believe the Secretary of Defense has just responded last week and admitted that the $1 billion mission that he led against the Houthis, who do not have a Navy, has not restored the transit of U.S. flag commercial vessels through the Red Sea, and in fact has resulted in the loss of 2 F-18 Hornets to the tune of $60 million apiece, as well as, I believe the last count was 7 Reaper drones to the tune of another $200 million. You are blowing through money like my fellow cadets and I did in our first Liberty after basic camp. Luckily, I didn't end up with a questionable tattoo. Your failures, Mr. Secretary, since you've taken office has been staggering. You sent classified operational information over Signal to chest thump in front of your wife, who, by the way, has no security clearance, risking service member lives in the process. You blew the $1 billion fight against the Houthis, whom, again, as my colleague says, has no Navy, and yet you lost all of those aircraft. You've created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as your chief of staff or work with you in other senior DoD leadership roles. But what we should all be talking about more than all of this is that you have an unjustified, un-American misuse of the military in American cities, pulling resources and attention away from core missions to the detriment of the country, the war fighters, and yes, the war fighting that you claim to love. I don't know if this is because you are too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats facing our country, or if it's because you are just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe. You are focusing on renaming basis for Confederate generals. You said just now to Senator King that to a man and to a woman, we would rather be associated with the old Confederate names. Well, I am one of those women. I served at Fort Rucker, Alabama. a base that was named for a traitor who took arms against the United States of America, led troops who killed Americans. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient, who in his citation for the Medal of Honor includes that he saved 29 American lives, to include hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker where a wounded American was laying and saved that person, including after being taken fire himself. I know a little something about what it takes to fly a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. That was heroic. I'd rather be associated with Mike Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor. I don't know whether you are inexperienced or too incompetent, but I wonder when you will actually focus on our nation's warfighting mission. We know that California is just a deliberate, systematic, political, and dangerous campaign led by you. We should not be using our military to play cops against Americans. General Kane, as chairman, a key part of your job is to coordinate military planning across the joint force. Is the department currently incorporating into any military plans expanding the use of the reserve forces to include the National Guard or active duty troops to support domestic law enforcement, including in other locations in the United States?
Senator, you know, we careful.
No, General.
Well, it's not really a yes or no question, Madam Senator. We plan all kinds of different things.
I think it is a yes or no question.
I'm not aware of anything, but the reason why I'm answering is the tags may be looking at something that I'm not aware of.
What are you doing at your level? You're not aware of that happening at your level? Because we know that on his first day, President Trump directed U.S. Northern Command to revise its unified command plan to add new planning requirements to combat, and I quote, criminal activities. A series of follow-up executive orders continue to redirect DOD priorities to supporting domestic law enforcement, including one in April that tells DOD, and I quote, use national security assets for law and order. In other words, do law enforcement's job. I'd like to enter these executive orders into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
Secretary Hegseth, you say you are focused on warfighting and warriors. These are your words. Yet you are diverting untold DOD resources and attention to fundamentally non-military mission of domestic policing. Across the country, we have qualified police officers who are trained for that mission. They know those streets better than the Marines you deploy to Los Angeles, who normally focus on the Indo-Pacific. And you recently approved 700 more troops in 3 other states to do admin and logistics works for ICE. You say all of this is valuable training, but I would much rather have our troops do tough, realistic training relevant to high-end combat. Instead of typing in spreadsheets for ICE, they should be conducting live fire maneuver exercises. Instead of patrolling American neighborhoods and standing in front of federal buildings, they should be rehearsing call for fire missions. We have local police who can stand in front of those federal buildings. And the list of distractions goes on. You are encouraging the DOD workforce to go work for DHS in increasing numbers. You're pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who literally say things like death to America. And you're putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans. Mr. Secretary, let the military get back to its real job. Stop forcing them to do DHSs. And if you want to be DHS Secretary, maybe you can apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence.
Ooh, damn, Rebecca, she read his ass for filth.
That was the clip I needed to see going into Juneteenth. I mean, what more can you say? Look, she is a true patriot. She served honorably in our nation's military. And so when we talk about experts, that's what expertise looks like. So we saw someone who is not an expert but has the position. And then we saw an expert. We saw someone who is very thoughtful when it comes to policy, especially around our military. Our military is never supposed to be deployed in U.S. cities towards American citizens. That is something that our military, that's not even within the purview of our military. And so what we're seeing is an administration that's using very unconstitutional measures for political advantage. And so Americans ought to be extremely upset with what's going on. And I wish more Americans would truly understand all of the unconstitutional things that we're seeing that's happening in this moment.
If this was good times, Eugene, it'd be like, damn, damn, damn. Eugene, if you're going to respond, your ass can't be on mute.
My bad. Sorry. You're not going to have it muting up, all right? You mute up, mute out. But, I mean, it's talk about getting the business clear. I mean, she essentially told him, she said, listen, we grew here. you flew here and don't belong here, and we still gonna be here after they get your ass up out of here. Senator Duckworth, we appreciate her service to this country and her continued service to this country, because look, you need people like her that literally have the lived experience to be able to actually, deal with an out of control, Pentagon executive branch in real time. I believe she outranked him in service. I know now, of course, he's, sec def. But, the thing is this, he will eventually be fired. Whether it's a botched response to eventual response to Iran or something else, Trump will eventually get rid of him. But it'll be senators like Senator Duckworth and others that'll still be standing strong afterwards. But she said, listen, you knew here, we grew here, you flew here. And we're still gonna be here when they get your ass up out of here.
Bottom line here, that's the kind of heat. Look, he been a pompous ass on Capitol Hill all week, Robert. That's how you need to put that fool in his place.
And for people who didn't watch the entire hearing, that was the entire hearing was like that, with people reading the riot act. And this is why I encourage people to understand, don't look at the people at the top of the Trump cabinet. These are actors. He literally pulled half of them off of TV. They don't know anything about it. They are just there to go look on camera and do things. Dig down into the documents and find the undersecretaries. Find the technocrats who you've never heard of. Those are the people who are really running the government. Do you really think they put the drunk guy from Fox and Friends Weekend in charge of a $1 trillion budget? No. So when I say that this is important, you have to look at what the current U.S. policy is with regards to Iran. The reason that we are massing aircraft carriers in the region, bringing a third aircraft carrier from the Straits of Malacca to the Persian Gulf, the reason we are repositioning as many as 50 aerial refueling tankers from the east coast of the U.S. to European command, the reason 2 months ago we repositioned 19 B-2 stealth bombers from Missouri to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, is because very clearly we're about to go bomb the hell out of Iran. And Israel has already started taking out the early warning radars, taking out the command and control centers, assassinating much of their high-level leadership, taking out Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas, who are their proxies in the region. But folks need to understand that Iraq and Iran are not the same thing. Iran has a space program. Iran has one of the most powerful drone armies known to mankind, so much so they were selling drones to Russia the last 2 years. If you think we're simply going to go in and in 2 weeks remove them the same way did Saddam during Desert Storm, that is not going to take place. And before this administration runs its headlong into another 20-year entanglement in the Middle East, we need to be asking serious questions about what exactly is happening, what it will mean, and whether or not we should be spilling American blood for a war that Netanyahu started.
Bottom line is, way to go, Senator Tammy Duckworth. Rebecca, Eugene, Robert, certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Hey, folks, we don't have a show tomorrow. Tomorrow's Juneteenth. We normally do a show on Juneteenth, but we're going to be broadcasting live on Saturday from Richmond, Virginia, at the Virginia Commonwealth Dinner. So the Blue Commonwealth Gala will be broadcasted live beginning there. The VIP reception is at 5 p.m. We'll be live beginning at 5 p.m., so we can't wait. So you definitely want to check us out then. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Charleston, West Virginia for a Juneteenth speech taking place tomorrow. St. Louis, I'll see y'all Friday in St. Louis. I was literally just looking at my itinerary. So St. Louis, I'm going to be at the Jubilee Project. It's going to be at the JFK Community Center, 315 Howdershell Road, Florissant, Missouri. It's going to be on Friday. So that event, meet and greet, VIP meet and greet, was going to be at noon, and then my keynote speech as well as fireside chat is going to be at 3:15 p.m. So look forward to that. So lots of stuff going on. So folks, hey, if you want to support the work that we do, join our Bring the Fuck fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. It's $4.19 a month, 13 cents today. Support the work that we do. Of course, if you want to contribute via Cash App, here is the Stripe QR code right here for Stripe. And so you can just use that QR code if you want to Of course, send check a money order. Go to, first of all, make it out to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Make it payable to Roland Martin, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037 7-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You, of course, also can be sure to get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Get the audio version I read on Audible. You can also, of course, support us by getting our swag. Be sure to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag by going to rolandmartin.creator-spring.com. You can get our shirts, especially Don't Blame Me, I voted for the black woman. You can get all of that at rolandmartin.creator-spring.com. Don't forget, you can also, of course, go to support our black-owned companies. Go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Shopblackstarnetwork.com to shop our marketplace for those products. And, of course, we want you to also get the app Fanbase. So that's right. Download the app Fanbase, Android, Apple. And of course, if you want to, of course, invest, get more information at startengine.com/Fanbase. Folks, that's it. Y'all be well. Have a fabulous Juneteenth. And we're going to keep bringing the funk as we always do. Now it's time for Truth Talks.